Hello everyone, welcome to the third programme in the series, my programmes, Bob's Golden Memories. And this one is probably one of the greatest for the England team anyway. And it was, the venue was Holme Pierrepoint in Nottingham in England. It was a World Championship in 1994. And it was a rowing course at Holme Pierrepoint, about, 2,000 metres or more long. It was a great venue because it had a road running behind it all the way. So you could park behind your peg, easy access, no problems at all. And the fishing leading up to the World Championships was fabulous. We were catching lots of fish on the pole at 13 metres with bloodworm, throwing in some balls at the start, and then, so the venue was a great one for a World Championship. Reasonable depth, similar all the way through, about 8 metres on the pole line, at about 13. And then further out on the slider line, something like only about 11 foot. So it wasn't at probably 30 odd metres. So it wasn't really that deep, even further out. But as we were getting, let's go to we're going to the team first. This is now, because it's not Richard Clegg was the team manager, and because it was a home venue, he selected a bigger squad for practice. That meant it was going to be tougher to get into the team, so that was going to be hard for a start. And he picked. There's the squad that he picked. Let's see if I can show you there. I can see you. So there's Kevin. I don't know when you're looking at it where that would be, on the left or the right. But there's Kevin. And behind Kevin, who's that hiding behind Kevin? Oh, Dave Vincent, Mike Stone, Kim Milson. This is at the back. Who else is that at the back? Is that Alan? Yeah, Alan, and Alan next to me, and then myself. And then at the front, this was taken after. And then at the front, we've got Dennis, Steve Gardner, the manager Dick Clegg, the senior coach Mark Addy, and then who is that? That's Pete Vasey on the right hand side. So quite a big squad. And as usual, we had to practice beforehand, and the final team for selection was, the final 6 that were going to fish was Kim Milson and myself, Stevie Gardner, Alan Scotthorne and Dennis White. So, Kevin Ashurst got dropped. That was the first time that Kevin was dropped, and Dick said that was the hardest decision that he'd ever had to make. When we practice, what happens is, as you Dick seems to formulate fairly often, he's in the team or he's not in the team, and then it ends up with 2 anglers fighting for the last place. And it just so happened that Kim Milson, who was the new boy, was pitted against Kevin, and they had 2 matches on the last 2 days, almost between themselves, with the anglers that had already been picked. Not really been picked, but we knew we were in the team, so I was happy. And Kevin and Kim had to fight out over the last 2 days who could catch the most fish on the slider. And Kim, who was the new boy, and it's always hard when you're the new one coming into a team, Kim came out on top. So it was that was the team. But going on to our practice, we stayed actually we were in accommodation at Holme Pierrepoint. I suppose it's just like a sporting hotel would be, but very, very low key. But it was all right, cheap and good. It was the first year also that Peter Drennan had sponsored the England team, Drennan Team England we were called then. But in practice, we've been catching quite a few roach on the pole. But Dick, he has this knack of working things out, and leading up towards the match day, he was thinking about it, and and he decided that slider was going to be the method. Fishing a slider definitely was going to be the method. And so we practiced the slider more than anything. What had happened was that the fishing was good early on. There was a bit of colour in the water. The colour was dropping out, getting nearer the competition weekend. And when colour drops out of the water, the fish will move, go further away. So Dick, and he that plan was good. So we had to practice fishing a slider at about 35 metres, firing in balls of, I'll go into the feeding a bit more later, but that's what we had to do. And we really perfected this technique, and Alan had come up with it, Alan Scotthorne. I'd have said he was the best at it. Yeah, he was definitely the best out of all of us there. Alan was the best angler at that method when we first introduced it. You know, you think, well, wherever Alan is, he's going to catch. And but he came up with this idea of, which we wouldn't really think of clipping up on the slider line. So you'd cast out, set your distance to 35 metres, a little bit more because your float has to come in a bit. And then set your line clip, and then you could cast. I said it was only earlier on, I said it was about 11 foot deep, so that's 3.5 metres deep. So you could cast your line clip, just put your rod under the water, and as the float come back towards you, as long as your slider was heavy enough, the line would sink. You might have to give it a little flick with the tip of your rod, just a little side. I usually do a little sideways flick with it underwater, and it sinks without moving the float almost. And so Alan had worked this out, and it really worked well because, and especially when there's not many fish, you need to be very accurate with your casting. So you pick a marker on the far bank like you would with a feeder, really. You'd cast out, mark a far bank, and then you'd cast to it. And the same with the slider. And then, but of course the advantage is, of course, you're not fishing a feeder, but you've got to feed. And if you've got something to feed to, it's always better, isn't it? When you've got a nice marker, a float there, and then boom, you get into a rhythm of, still not easy, but you get into a rhythm of feeding to that. So that's how we, that was our plan, was to fish at 13 metres on the pole line at the beginning, and then to fish out on the slider, because that's where more fish were in it. So it proved, and the hard part was the match day. I've just so difficult thinking back to, what's that, 84? Well, it's a long while ago, I tell you. So sometimes I've just written down a few things to sort of look at and think, oh yeah, that's what happened on what people caught on each day, because I knew what I caught each day because there wasn't many fish, so it was easy to do it. So the first day of the match comes, and there's loads of people. Let me just show you. That was some of the crowd at the presentation. That's unbelievable, isn't it? Look at that lot. That's just some of the crowd, but it was like that. I don't know if I've got any pictures of people behind us when we're fishing. Probably have somewhere, but maybe I'll show you later. But you know, there was a lot of people. I've never ever been to a world championship when there's been so many people, so many anglers, and they were mostly anglers from all over the country. Wonderful it was. Well, wonderful, but a lot of pressure when there wasn't many fish. It didn't fish. It did fish tough, and everybody said that. But I think if you, I'll tell you a bit later, but I think if you did everything right, almost from any peg, I think you should have caught at least 1 or 2 fish. Anyway, the first day comes, and I drew in, where was I? Yeah, D section I drew, which is C and D section were the toughest. You know, there was so many blanks in those sections. The others weren't too bad, A, B and E. There was, you know, quite a few fish caught and some goodish weights. But I drew in a tough section. And the whistle goes, and our team plan was to put 10 balls, big balls of ground, like big balls of ground bait, and we were using like a census roach and a match blend. That was our ground bait mix with about, I bet we were putting 600 or 700 grams of joker in that. And on the pole line, we were feeding, about 10 or 12 balls at 13 metres, 13 or 14, probably 13 metres, I think. And then on the slider line, we were putting about, more than probably a dozen tangerine size balls with the catapult on our pole. That was ground bait with a bit of joker in. So that was you get 5 minutes. World Championship was fished over 2 days, 3-hour sessions. And you get a 5 minute pre-baiting, and then you're straight into the match. So 5 minutes, you imagine 5 minutes, right? Your pole's got to be out there. Then you've got to throw in 10 balls. Then you've got to come in with your pole, get that out of the way. Then you've got to throw your slider out, and then you've got to fire in a dozen or 15 balls, all in 5 minutes. I tell you what, that time flies. So we did that. So it was ground bait out as well, but not too heavy, the ground bait out, just reasonable, just smallish balls, and hopefully some were breaking up on the way out. And the match starts, and there's crowds there all the way along. I mean, it's 2 miles and there was crowds all the way. Obviously, there was more behind the Englishmen, because you always want your country to do well, don't you? And that's when you're fishing a team match. When you think about it, although I'm a very relaxed person, takes a lot to faze me, honestly, that really does. But it's not just you, it's your team manager who's put all that effort in. It's your team, every one of them are relying on you, you're relying on them, they're relying on you. And your country, we're English. Whatever nation, if you're fishing for Italy or France, you want your country to feel proud of you, don't you? And do well for your country. So it's the same for us. Although you're relaxed, you still want to make sure you catch. And the match starts, and there's Holme Pierrepoint's, it's a rowing course, fairly wide. The wind wasn't that strong on the first day, but it was blowing down the venue, blowing down. And when you get a water blowing down, then it usually comes back as well, backs up underneath. So we'd opted, and it always works this, if we'd opted to fish a slider with some weight down, fishing out 11 foot. You could have fished wagglers at 11 foot, 11 foot deep. But the only trouble is with that top surface layer will be going with the wind. And if all your weight is in the float and all your weight is up there as you're fishing a waggler, that waggler will go through with the wind. And if you can imagine, if you've got undertow, your bait will be going back against the wind. So you'd cast out with a waggler, and your waggler would go that way, but you'd fed there, and little bits of bait, little bits of joker that are dropping off would be going back the other way. And we'd worked that out, that sliders were best, even though only 11 foot deep, but you've got to be able to fish a slider properly. And, so we were fishing probably 8 or 10 gram sliders with a bulk. Then we had lots of shots, like either treble A's or swan shot, knit together and really tight together. They mustn't move. The float itself, when you're fishing a slider, always needs to have a little bit of weight in the float. So say if you've got a 10 gram slider, you'd want 1.5 or 2 grams of that weight. So it's like a semi-loaded waggler, but only very lightly loaded, just enough. What that does, as you cast, if the float is just loaded, it will cling to that bulk of shot as you cast it out. If it's too light, it will fly away from the shot, and then all you get is a tangle every time. When you cast, it's got to be nice and smooth. It's got to go out with everything together, and then it will sort of stay together. And it's so important. When you're fishing a match like that, you can't afford tangles. You've got to be smooth. And I tell you, it's not easy. You have to get everything correct. So all those shots had to be really tight. Now I've changed it a bit. I use like a lead bullet now, like a 10 gram or an 8 gram round bullet. and lock that in and put a little tiny shot against it, because that can't, obviously, when you've got lots of shots on the float, they can come apart and then you can get a tangle. If they don't stay tight, if one of them shots moves away a little bit, then you get tangles. So we've got everything perfected. Fishing, so match starts, and I've fed. We were only fishing lightish floats on the pole line, I think, sort of probably between 0.5 grams and 1 gram. But nobody had hardly been catching anything on it. So the team plan was first 10 minutes on the pole, just to see if there is one fish there. If it goes under and you catch it, then you're away. We knew it was going to be tough. And then switch to the slider line, casting out 35 metres, line clip, so you cast out, clip up, and then firing a small ball of, what we did was we had a small ball, we call it double leam. It's damp leam with joker, and then you put some grey leam in it with it. Now grey leam makes it sticky, so you can make it into a ball so it doesn't come apart, and spraying a little bit of water on it as well, so you could mould a little ball. And the sort of the damp leam made it heavy, so only a tiny little ball like that, 35 metres, and you had to get that somewhere near your float with thousands of people watching you. You could imagine it, can't you? So the match starts, and I was just casting out, and I was feeding a small ball of this leamed up joker on the pole line as well, just throwing it out while I was feeding. But sort of, I think about 8 minutes on the pole line, and I thought that's enough for me. I didn't have a bite, so I went out on the slider, firing balls, because the only thing about it is you've got to watch how you feed. It's easy to throw a ball in on the pole line while you're fishing a slider, but it's not so easy firing a ball out on the slider line when you're fishing a pole. So I couldn't wait to get out and start to feed my slider line properly, as I should be feeding it. So I was casting out, and I think about 20 minutes, maybe quicker than that. Nobody's catching a fish. Nobody's catching a fish. And what I figured out that what happens here is that at some time there's going to be a fish in your peg, or maybe 2 or 3, and they come through. They're there fairly quickly in a shoal, and then they're gone. So if as long as you could hit them when they came through and be in the right, fishing the right technique. So if you're on the pole and they come through on that long slider line, you've missed them, you've had it. About 20 minutes, I think I got my first bite, bang. Oh, it's a lovely feeling. And the crowd erupts, you know what it's like. Because nobody had caught a fish. So coming in, we was using, I had a 13-foot Bob Nudd Brownie match rod, reel line, probably about 3 or 4 pound, maybe 5 pound, 20 hook, and the bait was double bloodworm out when we were fishing out long, single bloodworm on the pole line, but I never fished the pole really. So double bloodworm, casting out, and this, what I was telling you about, what happened was, and I could see most anglers were fishing wagglers. And I could see their float, I could see the angler on my left. It was a Dutch angler on my left. I could see he was casting out, and his float was going completely the opposite direction to mine. I could sort of look, and you think you haven't got time, but I thought, oh, his float's going the other way, and mine was just tripping back nicely, because you're feeding, and the undertow was taking it back against the wind, just nice and steady. And about 20 minutes, boom, I'm into a fish. Perch comes in, crowd erupts, and out again. The float just settled, only just boom, away again. What I said about how these fish come quickly. Boom, another one. And then there was a little bit of a gap, and then I caught another one, and then another one. So I think I had caught my fish probably in the first, just over an hour, perhaps, for me last one. I don't know, I can't remember. But nobody's catching anything anyway. So four fish in the end. And I know, and it was all just firing out these little balls, bomb on your float. I know it I'm trying to think what they weighed. Just over a pound, so they were 200 and something grams each, I should think. Yeah, just over a pound of fish, which is now there was only, can you believe this? Right, there was 29 anglers in the section, so 29 teams. Only 6 people caught fish. Now there was more fish than that. I mean, it was a tough section, but I know there was more fish than that. And there was only 10 fish caught in the section. I had 4 of them out. Can you? That's how lucky I am, lucky Bob. But I know it wasn't luck then. It was the team plan, the accurate feeding, and being on the right method at the right time, and then just. You had to wait for as the float went. You just had to wait a little bit, a bit like normal. Sometimes when you're fishing perch with chopped worm, you just wait a little bit, and a bit like that with double bloodworm. You wait a bit, especially with perch. Roach are a little bit different, and then you can give a nice long sweeping strike. And as you strike, the tip goes round, and then of course the crowd, yeah, they erupt. So at the end of the first day, we got a blank. Alan Scottorn had blanked, can you believe? But he did lose a fish. He'd had a bite and he lost a fish. So what I said was that there was fish in every peg, and I think there was. And there wasn't, I don't think there was any teams that were fishing it as well as we were on that day. I think we were undoubtedly the best team on slider. Perhaps the French on the difficult pole parts, yeah. They always have an edge. The French and the Italians are always the Italians are really good on slider and everything. French are really good when it's really difficult. And yeah, but as far as the slider fishing goes, we were the best team. So the first day's over, and well, let me read you. Kim was 4th in his section, but he caught most of his on pole. He did really well. So the new man in the team's 4th. Dennis, 6th, he was in a reasonable section, caught quite a few fish. He had a mixture. He did have some on the pole, but most of them on the slider. Alan was the one that blanked. He was in C section. That was a difficult, really difficult section. I wasn't looking forward. I thought, oh, anyone who draws C section tomorrow's going to be in trouble. I was on D section, and I hadn't any thoughts of winning the World Championship because I'd got such a low weight. I'd only got pound something of fish, one section. Of course, that's what you have to do. And then in E section, Steve had a difficult time, and he finished 12th, but he caught quite a few fish, but he was the wrong end of his section really. So we ended up 3rd on the first day. Sweden won it with 41 points. Then France had 43, and we had 53 points. For some reason, they penalise you even more in World Championships. There was 29 teams, but if you didn't catch a fish, you got 29 penalty points plus another one because you were such a naughty boy for not catching. So you got 30 points, and so if you add ours up, that's how it came out. So it was brilliant. Team Dick Richard knew we'd got a good chance. So it comes to day 2. And I think that's it. I'm not very lucky with the draw, but of course in World Championships, the manager draws for you, Richard draws for you. So, and he always draws me a good peg. But he didn't draw me a very good peg on this day. He drew me, we drew the same peg. We'd drawn peg 18 on the first day, and we drew the same peg on the second day. So we were all back on the. Richard kept the team, Dick Clegg kept the team the same, and we were all on exactly the same pegs as one of our neighbours had been on, whoever, one of our team members had been on. And so, and I, guess where I was? I drew where Alan blanked on, that would have been, C section, C18. That's where Alan blanked from, and everybody would go, oh, Bob, Alan blanked, there's no fish there. I said, I'm not bothered. I said, because I know exactly that Alan would have fed at 35 metres, the same as me. And I know he'd have fed accurately. So I'm not, I said, if there's any fish around, I'll catch them, no problem. I wasn't worried. Of course you are worried, but it's and then you've got the extra pressure. There was some crowds here. That was some atmosphere. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like that. The noise, unbelievable. So day two comes, and I'm on C section, which was Alan's from the day before, and it's exactly the same. Fed the same balls on the pole line. 30, may have been 14 metres, 13 to 14 metres. And then now at 35 metres on the slider line, everything's in. I didn't last very long. Once again, I fished about 8 minutes on the pole the second day. And then I couldn't wait to pick up the slider. And out I went. We got the first day we'd had the French on one side. I was on the right and the Dutch on our left. And the second day, I'm not sure we had on the left, but we had the Italians on our right, and they are good. You know, they're so hard to beat. And the Italian angler next to me had caught 2 fish in the first. He was out fishing out the same as me. I thought, they know something that we don't. He'd got 2 fish, but I noticed that nobody on my right was feeding out on the feeder line. Only me. They were all on their poles, and I thought, I've got 6 pegs I can draw from. So I was just putting these little nuggets of, it was Joker with Lean, out on the slider line. Kept feeding. They were still all on the pole. And then there's the crowds gathering, because I'd won my section, of course. So you got an even bigger crowd if he wins his section again. Oh look, if he wins again, he's got it. And the crowd was gathering behind me. Let's see if we've got any photographs. That's roughly what it looks like then, the venue, when I'm standing up there, but there's people feeding, everybody's chucking out. Well, there's one of me. I'm just going to try and break it up a bit. There's one of me. That's me in the section feeding out, just catapulting out. That's really what you're depending on. And it was about 54 minutes. No, perhaps 50 minutes. Float goes, and I miss a bite. I thought, come in. Perch don't always damage your bait. Bait didn't look damaged, but I did put 2 new bloodworms on and out again. The float goes again, almost straight away. Exactly like I said, everything was happening quickly, just feeding. The slider was just settling nicely and then starting to trot. It was a bit windier the second day, and the float was trotting back against the wind. And the float just went. Boom. Rod arches round. The crowd, the roar. Unbelievable. That's another one of my greatest moments. You know, the hairs on the back of your neck. And I wasn't being particularly careful with them. 20 hook and probably 08 bottom. We weren't fishing heavy bottoms and coming in. I had a big weed bed in front of me both days actually. So I was aware that I didn't want the fish going into that and getting them caught, and so I was giving them a bit of stick. Typical how I usually fish anyway, even with the first fish. So I came in and it's a perch, and I did get a picture of me netting. Can't hear the crowd, but I'm just netting. That's my first day. Just netting a fish there. I think it might have been the first day or the second day, but just netting a fish. And then the crowd do erupt. They erupt when you hook a fish, and then they erupt when it goes in the net, because you're never sure, are you, till it goes in the net. So that's the first fish, and that was out again. Float goes again, but this time I went out, but perch sometimes need the bait twitched. You know, just to try and, we call it inducing a bite. Even though the float was just tripping back a bit, sometimes you need a little extra, especially for perch, you need a little extra. And what I was doing was I was just turning the reel handle so the float started to go. Of course, the crowd are behind you. They don't realise what you're doing. They see your float going and they think, why is that idiot not striking? You know, you hear them gasp. and then you let it come, but then it goes, and then it goes, then you, about time he's hit that one, isn't it? He must have been asleep. And so I caught, I caught most of my fish just twitching a little bit. Well, most of them, only caught 6. So I had 4 perch, then I caught a nice roach, probably 250 grams, maybe 300 grams. Nice big roach. And then I finished up with a perch. Now, all that happened within about 25 minutes, 30 minutes, over and done. That's my match finished. What I said, you had to be there when the fish were there and just take advantage of it. And I think I ended up winning the section again. But I didn't think I got any chance of World Championship. But they'd got a tannoy all the way along that was announcing how everybody was doing, and there was an angler from Portugal, Mario Barros, brilliant angler, and he'd won the World Championship the year before, a couple of years ago anyway. He was a world champion, but he'd won his section the day before with a goodish weight, and he was in Dennis White's section, and he was catching early. They had a tannoy telling everybody what was happening. And I thought, oh, blimey, come on. And Dennis started to catch. And I thought, come on, Dennis, please overtake him. And then I did say to somebody, if Dennis beats him, I'll give him a big kiss. And I'll show you a picture about that later. And Dennis did beat Mario Barros and won the section. Actually, Mario Barros come about 6th, but Dennis won that section. We had some really good results on day 2, except for Kim. And Kim lost a fish as well. Kim blanked, and he lost a fish. I wonder if he caught a lot of fish on the pole the day before. Did he? I never really had a chance to ask him, did you concentrate on the pole too much on the second day because you'd done well with it the first? Because I knew that it was all sliders, so did most of the team. Alan did well. Let's have a look. So we finished up with Dennis won his section. Alan was 3rd, so Alan Scotthorne was 3rd in his section. I won mine, so 3 sections we got 5 points. D section, Stevie was in. It was tough in Stevie's. He didn't catch much, but he finished 4th in his section, so that was good. So we really done well. And then we'd got Kim Milson, who blanked in E section. So I think Kim should have caught, because the Italian next to him won the section with a good weight, and Kim didn't catch anything, so Kim probably reflected he should have caught. But he did brilliant for us after that, so that was just one match, and things can happen, can't they? You just do the best you can, and Kim was fishing well on the slider, brilliant angler anyway. So it finished up that France, who'd beaten us the day before, well, they finished a bit further down, so we went past, and we finished up with 39 points on the second day, and we ended up winning it. England 92 points in total, France 96, and Italy, all the teams that you would expect. As I've always said, French, England, Italy. Back then, it's different now, a lot better teams now, a lot more teams that are more competitive and put a lot of effort in. And Italy finishing with 117. So Italy had a double blank on the first day, which cost them, because they were next to us on that second day, and we only beat them by a point. That was really tight. So it was really a battle between. I don't think we had a terrible draw, but I'm not big-headed when I say this, but I think we were the best team on the bank at that loaded slider, 35 metres, feeding accurately. I think we were the best team there. Just a shame about the fishing. There's only those middle 2 sections that were bad, but if you was to speak to all of our team, I bet they would have said that, yeah, there was a fish in their peg at some time. Even the ones at blank, well, they did, because they lost fish. So, and Alan missed a bite as well, he said. So he said 2 fish in his peg. May have been the same one that he lost. So there's a picture of me giving Dennis a kiss. He looks a bit red there, doesn't he? It must have been in the makeup room before we did that. What other pictures have we got? Let's see what we've got there. Oh, there's more kisses. There's the manager, Richard, Sir Richard. And that's me. That's the team cup there. Richard and myself both. Yeah, it wasn't full of champagne. I wish it was. What else have we got for you picture-wise? Yeah, that's... I was showing you the crowds at the presentation was unbelievable. You probably can't see that, but they're all stacked up along the back here. They're everywhere. They're just thousands and thousands. They reckon over the weekend there was 20,000. I don't know how many were at presentation, but there was a lot. It was a... And there's one of me with just a crowd there. It's lovely to bring back these memories, you know, of and you should have... The clapping just went on forever. The clapping just went on forever. Wonderful, wonderful feeling there. But the main thing was we'd won the team event, and I'm looking for our team picture. What did I do with it? Got a team picture somewhere. Perhaps not. There's the first three individuals there, which is this is Jean-Jacques Chameau is the nearest one here to the camera there. That's Jean-Jacques. He was third. Oh yeah, that was the headlines in England Times. So that was good. I mean, it's a bit about these are my golden moments, so I'm probably emphasising a bit much on my individual thing, but my individual performance was all brought about by the team, by Alan working out exactly about clipping up with the slider, by the manager Richard Clegg working out how we were going to fish, so many minutes on the pole, then going on the slider. I owe my wins to them, not to me. All I had to do was stand there and fish, wouldn't it? Go out, bump. It's not easy though, honestly. Especially that second day. The first day I caught fairly quickly. The second day, 50 odd minutes. Italian had got 2 fish. It ended up, the second day there was only about 8 people who caught on my section then. 6 on the first day, 8 on the second. So it was still tough. And then I finished up with, let's have a look. I'll show you. And that trophy there, that is that's sort of like a blown glass special. There's only one of them in the world, Le Grand, with the sponsors then of the competition. They put a lot of money in and provided that beautiful individual trophy, Le Grand. It's lovely. Still got that one. Beautiful glass, kept in a special cabinet. So really, that was probably, yeah, one of England's greatest team achievements. For me, I've got lots more to tell you, haven't I? That's just my second World Championship win that I've spoken about. We've still got some more to come, haven't we? Plus some other things. But I hope you've enjoyed this chat. I tried to tell you a little bit about how to fish with a slider if you're not used to it, and how you have to think when you're fishing, and how you have to be, if you're in that sort of situation, how you have to try to be positive. Try not to worry about anybody else. Just take your time in what you're doing. Don't be rushing it. Be careful in your thinking so that you're more accurate with your feeding, especially when it's difficult. When it's difficult, accuracy is the key. When it's rock hard. Of course, no pole cups again then. When did pole cups come in? Does anybody know? Let me know if they do. 1994, I don't think we had pole cups then. We might have done. We definitely weren't allowed them in World Championships. Blimey, I've been talking for a long while today. You're going to get fed up with this, aren't you? Okay, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed my little chat, and I look forward to doing these. Quite enjoy talking and going back in time. I do a bit of research. Not easy to do it without research, but really was really one of England's greatest moments, I think, as a team. The Holme Pierrepoint World Championships 1994. Bye for now. See you again sometime soon. Bye.